Okay. So let's go back into our, let's close this. Let's close this. Don't save. Let's close this. Okay, so here is what we've been working on. All right, and now we need to get our variable environment actually working for applying a stored function. All right, so now we have a whole class to get this working, and now since things are getting more and more complex, we need to test this. So we need to get ourselves back into the mindset of where we left off. So we have an expression that we're starting with here. Okay, and what is this expression? It's going to be an app expression, correct? So that's a list of 2 lambda expressions. The first expression in here is going to be a lambda expression that takes 2 parameters, an a and a b, and what it does is it applies a to b. All right, with the understanding that this guy is an app expression, and a, our plan is a should resolve in the variable environment down to a function, right? When we look up a in our variable environment, it should boil down to a lambda, a lambda calculus expression, specifically one of the lambda ones, okay? So that production of it. B should be the parameter that gets sent into that guy, okay? Now, here are the 2 values that we're passing in to for A and B. So A is bound to this value. So as a result of that, that value right there that we have highlighted should get thrown into the variable environment as an unparsed string that we'll have to parse later on, right? Isn't that how we're storing it? We're not evaluating it. So unparsed is wrong. It gets thrown in there as a parsed but unevaluated expression. All right. So inside of our variable environment, we will associate a variable name a with a value of this guy as a parsed expression, but not evaluated, because we don't have the parameter to evaluate it yet. We can only evaluate this lambda procedure if we have an input for x. And right there and then we don't. So we're just going to store that lambda inside of our variable environment. Okay? Similarly, 5 will get passed in for the parameter for b. So right here, this is where things get bound, correct? Things get bound right there. So we're binding a to this lambda, we're binding b to the number 5. Okay, to that lit expression 5. And then what does this lambda do here? This lambda binds a variable x. So this will only happen when we actually go to evaluate this guy. So when we actually go to evaluate this guy, we're going to bind a variable name x with, well, he actually gets evaluated right here. So if we expand that out, what's going to end up being in here is a is going to get replaced with this, and b is going to get replaced with a 5. Go ahead.
Is there a way you can throw this up on GitHub real quick, just so I make sure my code's...
Throw this up in GitHub real quick. That's a good question.
Yeah, that I have a way to type.
Or just put it in Pastebin.
What is Pastebin?
Pastebin.com.
It'll be quicker.
Paste the URL.
So I just highlight all this.
Yep.
And
Copy, go to Pastebin.
I like that. I like that.
pastebin.com like that.
Yeah. Paste it.
in there. Syntax, highlight, you can type into C. Have that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Syntax.
You just type in. Start typing. Never forget it.
Oh, I actually had to.
And then
So just do I name it?
Yeah.
you just submit.
And it's just gonna be a link.
Copy the
Okay,
URL
copy the
top,
URL to
This
the
guy?
Slack,
paste that.
and then we win.
How long until that guy expires?
Never.
Really? That's interesting.
At some point.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
well.
when.
Theoretically.
All right. So, in any case, we're gonna test some of these ideas first to make sure we're on a right playing field here, because what's ended up happening the last several times we've tried to work on this, we've only worked on it for like 20 minutes, and it takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get into it enough, and then we only have 5 minutes to figure out what's wrong. We got time today, so we're going to get this working and fixed, and then we can move forward with hard stuff. All right, so right here we're binding A and B to these values. So A will be a variable bound to the value, this lambda expression. B will be a variable bound to this lit expression that does get evaluated, right? Okay, this lit expression evaluates to 5. That's its value. Okay, and we're gonna prove that to ourselves. Okay, then the body of this original lambda here says apply the value A to the value B. A will boil down to this lambda. The value we're applying it to is going to be 5, so 5 will get passed in for x. The answer should ultimately be 5. Make sense? That's what we plan on seeing happen. So when we evaluate this expression, it should ultimately spit out a 5. Okay? Everybody understands so far what we're trying to accomplish. All right. So now let's see which parts of this are actually accomplished. All right, so I'm going to get rid of some of this extra stuff here. So let's go ahead and call parse. So just call parse or parse expression? Parse exp. And let's pass it an exp. Let's make sure this guy does what we think he should do in terms of this. Okay, so he gives us something that looks like this. Okay, and I'm actually going to open this up in text edit instead of Notepad. That way we have a little bit more screen real estate to kind of work with for piecing the parts out. Is that big enough? Need bigger?
I always need bigger.
Actually.
Go about the bigger.
Good? All right, so this is what this guy looks like. So first part is we have an app expression. Okay, what's this app expression? Its body is going to be this. So it's a list containing a lambda expression that takes an AB, whose body is an app expression that takes in an A and a B. Okay, so this guy right here closes this. This guy right here closes this. So that's part one of the first app expression, right? First app expression is a lambda expression that takes in an A and B and applies A to B. That part looks right. So parsing so far looks like it does what it's supposed to do, right? And we are applying that lambda expression in the environment. So the second part of this app expression is going to be this guy, which is a lambda. So that's what's going to be coming in for A. Actually, coming in for this A. So this A will boil down to this lambda. This B should boil down to this lit expression. All right. So if we call run program on this, what it should do is it'll call, what is it called, evalExpression. And at the very least, this should give us an environment that looks correct. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is we want to next prove that after it's gone through this first guy here, after it's processed this app expression, we want to prove that our environment indeed has two variables in it. One for A, that's equal to a lambda, and one for B, that's equal to a 5. Make sense? So let's make sure we're getting that far. All right, so our parse seems to be working. So now let's call our run program here on the parsed expression. And all run program does is it gives us it just calls the eval expression starting off with an empty environment. Okay? We know that the very first thing it's going to run into is an app expression, correct? So when we call eval expression here, we're going to take in this entire thing down here. That's what LCE will be equal to initially, as well as the environment, ENV. Okay, so we're going to actually modify this guy a little bit. In fact, actually, if you will, well, we'll see if I want to make a duplicate of this. We'll just see. So we come in here right off the bat. We know it's not a lit. We know it's not a var. We know it's not a lambda. So it must be an app expression. All right, and this is where we start asking the question: is listref1 of list? Well, we take listref LCE1. That's this guy. So that's bucket 2 of the original guy. Okay, so this guy, if LCE looks like this, and we're asking for listref LCE1, listref of this guy, so we'll just say this is called LCE1. So this guy's LCE. Right? What's that going to give us? Bucket 1 is this guy right here. Correct? Bucket 0 is the app expression string. Bucket 1 is our original lambda. Bucket 2 is this guy. Bucket 3 is this guy. Make sense? So this guy right here should boil down to that. Then what are we saying? We're saying take bucket 0 of that guy. So bucket 0 of that guy should boil down to bucket 0 of that, which is just this. Make sense? Okay, so let's make sure that that happens. So we should get to this line right here, because we should see that bucket 0 of bucket 1 is lambda expression. So how did we do the debugger? How do we do a breakpoint here?
Right click. You have to be in debug.
Oh, I gotta be in debug mode first. So I click play debug. Okay, well, in any case, we definitely got in there, right? Because we got to this, so I need to.
Gone anywhere if you just click.
I never paused it, so now we can.
Is that the false right there?
If.
Because it's above the line, so you need to be one up.
Oh, thank you. So I want to be right here. We want to make sure we're getting into this. That means that this EQ thing is coming up correctly. All right, so do I just do debug again? All right, well, there's run program, so let's step. Oh, actually, I can just go, and should take me to that line. Okay, so we are at that line, right? So that means it did, in fact, figure out that bucket 0 of bucket 1 is a lambda expression, as expected. That does what we think it should do. Perfect. Okay. So I'll go ahead and stop this. And then I got to go, how do I go back to the other mode? Just close this? Yeah. I'm sure I'll be coming back to this mode anyways, but. All right, and then I just press enter somewhere to get it to look less scary. Aha, okay. So, we're in here. So what do we say to do in here? Well, we're going to go ahead and call eval expression. What expression are we going to call? We're going to call listref bucket 1 on bucket 2. All right, so we already know what listref of bucket 1 gives us. That's this guy right here, so he's going to give us this dude. All right, so this guy boils down to this. This guy here boils down to, well, we already know what he boils down to. So we know this is a lambda exp, right? So now we're asking for bucket 2 from that. So since we know we're already here, we're going to go ahead and try to evaluate an expression. What expression? The expression that lives at bucket 2 of this guy. So let's see what he looks like. Okay, so bucket 2 of this guy, this is bucket 0, this is bucket 1, this is bucket 2. All right, so we're going to call evalExpression on that guy. Okay, and does that look like an expression that is evaluable? Evaluatable? Evaluable? All right. It seems like it, right? It's an app expression where we can apply 2 things. Now, before that happens, though, when we call this guy, we want to see how the environment is extended right here. All right? Because we're going to evaluate this expression, which seems to be the correct expression. That does seem to be the expression that we want to evaluate, this guy right here. This is the body of that first guy. Okay, so it looks like we're okay there. And we want to evaluate that in the environment extended with some stuff. Okay? And this is the part that we want to make sure we have right. All right, so ExtendEnv for lambda, we're going to take listref LCE11. Okay, so what's 11? Let's copy this guy. Okay, this guy is going to boil down to, so this is 1. 1, 1 is going to give us this, right? Okay, so we're going to pass that in as the first parameter to ExtendEnv for lambda. So let's kind of build that guy up down here. So that's parameter 1 to that guy. Parameter 2 is going to be mapping this function here. Across that. Make sure so where's the map end? Right here. Let's copy this line over. So the second parameter to ExtendEnv is going to be the result of this. Okay, mapping this lambda across our list. And let's make sure we get the list right here. Okay, so here's the list, the CDDR of LCE. That guy right there. This whole thing up here is LCE. And the function that we're mapping across there is the one that says if the car of whatever is passed in is a lambda expression, just keep it. Otherwise, go ahead and evaluate that expression in the current environment. So before we can go any farther, let's see what this guy boils down to. So CDDR of LCE, well, the cdr of LCE is the list containing all that. The cdr of that is going to be the list containing, actually, hold on, let's, here, we can actually see this real quick. Let me do this. Instead of running this program, let's do CDDR of parse expression and expression. Okay, that gets us this. Looks like it gives us the right thing. So CDDR of this gives us that guy. That is the list whose first element is a list. Well, first element is a list, that's the lambda expression. The second element is a list, that's a lit expression. Okay? So this is what we're passing into map here. That guy right there. That's what we're passing into map. And what we hope to get out of that is a list whose first element is a lambda, untouched, and whose second element is just a 5. Okay? Because we're going to be evaluating it inside of an environment that doesn't have a, well, we actually don't need to evaluate it inside of the environment, so we'll pass it the empty environment, but it should just boil down to 5, because lit expressions don't actually look anything up in the environment, right? So we can actually just, I'm going to replace this here real quick, just for the sake of argument right now. This is empty ENV. Is that the constructor for empty ENV. That's the constructor for it. Okay, so effectively map should do this. It should map this lambda, that guy right there, across this list. All right, and because we know that we only have a lit expression here, we cheated a little bit just for the sake of this example by saying, we'll go ahead and evaluate the thing we're going to evaluate inside the empty environment. It's going to be cool because we know it's a lit expression. Why? Because we can see that it's a lit expression. Okay, and lit expressions don't need environments to evaluate. So this guy should boil down to just a 5. So if this line works the way we expect it to work, what we should end up with is a list whose first element is that lambda list, right? An unevaluated, parsed expression, whose second element should just be the flat number 5, not as a lit expression, but just a 5. All right, so let's see if that's the case. So we go ahead and paste this guy here. And what do we get? The first element. So hold on, does that? Yeah, so here's the first element, right? And here's the second element, just 5. Okay, so, and that's what map does. Map generates a list. This is a list with 2 elements in it. The car of that list is the lambda. So if I go ahead and let's just define LST to be whatever's returned by that. And then if I say car LST, we should get our lambda. If I say catter LST, we should get our 5. All right, that guy seems to give us what we want. So far, so good. Okay, it's a little concerning here that everything seems to be perfect so far, yet it's not working. So I'm sure we're going to stumble upon some completely stupid problem. Okay, so that takes us right here. So now we're extending our ENV for lambda, given that first guy. So let's go back in here, and that current environment, which will be the empty environment. So let's do this. So we already knew what that guy gave us. So I'm just going to actually steal this code right here. I want to see if this environment, if our ExtendEnv for lambda is correct. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass that in there. We're going to replace list_ref this guy with what it actually is for us, which is this guy right here, right? That's the parameter list, A and B. All right, and then we're going to get the result of mapping lambda across the CDDR of LCE. And the CDDR of LCE is actually this guy. So we'll replace CDDR of LCE with that guy. And then finally, we're just going to go ahead and give it the empty ENV as our starting environment. Okay? And just for define ENV to be that guy. So extend ENV for lambda should give us an environment that has an A equal to a lambda and a B equal to a 5. Not a lit expression, but a 5. All right, so we want to make sure our environments are getting extended correctly. So we'll go ahead and run that. Everybody relax.
Oh.
No, we're fine. Nothing to see here. All right, so we'll go ahead and run that. We'll switch this back to the empty environment, which is okay because we know it's a lit expression, so we don't need to worry about that there's nothing in that environment. Okay, so now let's print out ENV. So here is our environment that was generated from that. Here's a list, which contains a list. So this is a scope, right? Our environment currently is implemented as a list of scopes. So here's the first scope. So if I do car ENV, this is our scope. Okay, so that scope is a list of name value pairs. The first name value pair is B5. That looks correct, right? The second name value pair is A, followed by lambda, exp, blah, blah, blah. So seems to be followed by the right stuff. Right? Okay, so now let's try to call apply ENV, passing it the variable in that environment, and see if we get the right stuff out. So apply ENV, and we're going to go ahead and pass it B and our environment that we just saved, and we should get a 5. We do. Then we'll call apply ENV, passing it A and the environment we just passed, and this should give us our lambda. Okay. Here's our problem. All right. So we can put lambdas into our environment, but we're not successfully extracting lambdas out of our environment. Okay, because A clearly is in here, right? It's clearly in there, but we're clearly not getting a value out of it. So we need to look at apply ENV here. So we're getting null environment, this guy right here. All right. So I think we've discovered at least the first part of our culprit, right? So let's start walking through this. So the variable we're looking for is A. This is the environment we're looking at. Okay? Actually, the environment we're looking at is this. This is the environment. Okay? So first thing we're going to ask, is the environment equal to null? Well, this guy has a lot of crap in it, right? Totally not equal to null. Fine. So what are we going to do with it? Well, if the number, if when we call apply scope on var in the car of this, so we're going to take the car of this guy, so that's apply scope. The car is actually just our scope, so this is car ENV. So this is the scope we are passing into apply scope, this guy right here. And we are looking for, in this particular case, A. We saw that B worked, right? It was able to find B. The guy it couldn't find was A. Now what would be interesting to see is if you switched the two around, could it find A? We'll see what the bug ends up being. Is it because it can't find anything other than the first guy? That's what we'll see. So we're going to call apply scope, looking for A in this guy right here. So we should actually be able to test that. So I should be able to say apply scope A car ENV. Ah, he gives me an answer. So if I call apply scope on A, I get the lambda. Okay, so I'm asking if it's true that it's not a number. Well, is it true that that's not a number? So since it's true that it's not a number, we're going to call apply ENV. Oh.
We're only evaluating for numbers.
Oh. So we didn't finish writing apply ENV, did we?
No.
So it works on B because we're evaluating.
Yeah, all we're saying now is if it's not a number, check again, right? It's not a number, keep looking. Well, this guy it's true, it's not a number. It's exactly what it should be, but what it should be is not a number. So we need to go a little deeper here. So we're going to go ahead and let's grab the value here. And what we really want to say is if it's...
Well, do we need that number then?
No, we don't. We don't. But we do need to know whether it found it. All right, so...
So if we need to know if it found it, wouldn't we just need the null and false, and then we could return whatever was after it?
Well, otherwise we're applying scope, though, for more. So this is going to try to get it, and then we're going to look at what we have.
Do you want to check if that's not null?
Well, actually, I remember saying that this is inefficient because we're calling it twice. But we can just ask if not false will be true. So if we just say not, get rid of one of those guys. This says if this guy is equal to false. That's what that says right there, right? It says if apply scope when looking for our var and the car of the environment boils down to false, that means we didn't find it. Therefore, call apply env on the rest of the scope, on the next scopes. Otherwise, means that we must have found the value, so go ahead and return it. Okay, so let me do this here. Steal that line. We're going to go ahead and run it. And now this guy should give us... Oh, I need to give it the empty environment, right? Oh, no.
You deleted your entire...
Yeah. I think this guy should actually work now, though. So we have ExtendEnv for lambda. Define env to be ExtendEnv for lambda, those guys, along with this guy, which looks like that, and all of our environments. So we already switched it to the empty environment there.
You're going to get an error.
I need another close thing.
Because the not, you have to have something after the not to say if it's true or false.
I do. Well, no. I shouldn't. Oh, it's yelling?
Yeah, because it doesn't know if that's true or false. Because you're just applying the scope.
Yeah,
var on the
it's not
car.
telling
So
you.
it's not-
Right. Because if it gives me a real value, saying not 5 doesn't make any sense.
It needs a bool.
Yeah. Actually, I think I could flip it. Let me just type this in first and make sure this does what I think it should do. Could just write this right. We could say let resolved. We're going to create a let environment. And we're going to let resolved be equal to whatever is returned by this guy. Let's call it resolved. All right, so that's our let environment. Then we can ask a question in there. So now we're inside the let, and inside of our let, we've given ourselves a local variable called resolved. And what are we going to do with it? We're going to ask the question, if EQ resolved false, then call apply EnV on the rest of it, right? Otherwise, apply scope. No, actually, otherwise we don't need to apply the scope. We already have the value. Otherwise, just boil down to resolved. All right, so apply EnV, we'll take in a variable and an environment. If we have no place else to check, we return false. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and try to resolve the variable in the current scope. And we're going to do that inside of a local environment that we're going to build out of our let. So we're going to create a local variable called resolved, and we're going to set it equal to whatever apply scope returns here, right? So that, what I have highlighted there, will boil down to whatever apply scope gives us when we call, give it the variable in the current environment, the car of the current environment, which should be the next scope. Okay, so after this, resolved is one of two things. It's either a value, in our world, it's either the resolved value, like a lit, or it's a lambda that's not been resolved. It's just the original thing that we can then use. Or it's a false, because apply scope boils down to false if we run out of crap to check, and it boils down to an actual value otherwise. Okay, so resolved will either be a false or something. Then we ask if resolved is equal to false, let's just go ahead and check the next environment, right? Otherwise, go ahead and return resolved. We found what we were looking for. Okay, so that's what apply EnV should do. So now we can call define EnV, let's see all this stuff. Oh. Yeah, so actually this is just going to be in an else. Otherwise do that. Probably should have done it inside of an if else, but whatever. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and define our environment to be ExtendEnv for lambda, list AB onto map of all this crap onto the empty environment. Then this, okay. All right, I have to be doing this wrong. All right. Here's the first parameter to ExtendEnv for lambda. The second parameter should be our map. Okay, and map, that's the function we're mapping, and we're mapping it across this list. Steal this whole thing here for a second. Okay, so that gives us the right thing for our map. Okay. So let's start this again. All right, so we know that this map gives us the right thing. So we're mapping that lambda across this list, which should give us that. Okay, and that's the second parameter we're passing to ExtendEnv, that guy. So this guy right here should boil down to a the extended environment. Just paste that in there. Okay. Extend en. Oh, we're not giving it the empty environment that we're extending. We just haven't written the rest of the code. I didn't copy a complete enough thing. Because ExtendEnv takes the list of variables you're binding, the values you're binding it to, and then the environment that you're extending. I'm only giving it the list of variables we're binding and the values we're binding it to. So I need to then go ahead and give this guy an empty env for him to operate on. That makes sense? So now I have my extended environment. And that extended environment I can now call apply env, passing it an A on env, and it should give me the lambda. That works. I should be able to call apply env, giving it the B on the environment. It gives me a 5. That works. Okay, so we're able to extract those dudes out of there now. Okay, so our environment seems to be working correctly. So now we can go back to our code. Okay, well, false is better than a crash. So now let's walk through and find out why we get a false. So we're parsing our expression, which gives us the right value. We're calling run program. Run program creates the empty environment. We come in here to evalExpression with the parsed expression as well as the empty environment initially. What do we do with that? We come in here and we're going to call evalExpression this guy. So that's 1, 2 is on, where's 1, 2? This guy right here. So this is the expression we're evaluating. So let's kind of write this down here. So we're calling evalExpression on that expression. And when we evaluate an expression, we evaluate it inside of an environment. So the environment, the environment is this guy. Oh, I didn't. Give me a second. Make sure we have all our pieces here. So that is ExtendEnv on the empty env. All right, so this is our environment. That's already been extended. That's the result of calling ExtendEnv. Huh? So we're evaluating this expression inside of this environment. So that's the next guy that happens. This is where it's currently breaking. So evaluate expression, that guy, inside of this environment. Oh, thank you. Like that. Okay, got it. So let's now find where that's breaking. So this is calling apply expression. All right, so, or rather evalExpression. So evalExpression, let's just press enter somewhere so we can see. is taking in the current environment. Here's our extended environment right here. And we have already practiced evaluating stuff from the, applying the environment for our two variables, right? And then it's taking our lambda calculus expression, which is this guy right here. Lambda calculus expression says we have an app expression whose first element is a var expression and whose second element is a var expression. Okay. So we're coming down here inside of evalExpression. We get into the else. We ask, is the first guy a lambda? It's not. We're not looking at a lambda guy here. We're looking at something that is an app expression, but the first element of this guy is actually a var expression. All right, so since it's not a lambda, this is what we do if it is a lambda, right? That's what we do if it is a lambda. If it's not a lambda, what do? Well, we go ahead and try to get our resolved variable, okay, that first guy. So let's call resolved var. So listref LCE1 is going to be just this guy, right? So if we call evalExpression on that guy, given the current environment, we should get our lambda. So let's test that. So evalExpression on that guy inside of the environment that is that's the end of that. That's the end side of this guy. We should get a lambda as the result. Okay. So evalExpression. That got into var expression. So here's the evalExpression here. We should be getting right here to apply ENV with the car of the cooter of LCE. I thought we already tried that. Car of the cooter of LCE should give us, this is LCE right here. Car of the cooter of that guy should give us the var expression A. Okay, and it does. So now we're calling apply ENV. Oh. Am I in a world myself or you guys don't see? All right, so I'm calling apply ENV on this as my variable name, as opposed to that as my variable name. So right here, when I see a var expression, which I see, oh wait, no. The car of LCE, this is LCE. No, this.
LCE is the
evalExpression listref LCE1, which is going to be this guy. Okay, the car of that guy should be var expression. The car of the cooter of that guy, oh, no, it's good. The car of the cooter of this guy should be A, right? CADR of this guy should be A, okay? So we're going to apply ENV A inside of the environment, this guy. Should give us a lambda. Okay, that's the error we're getting. Why? Why are we getting that error? I thought we tested this. Okay. This line is what should work. Apply ENV, looking for a variable A inside of the environment that looks like this. So let's let me copy this, make sure we still have it, and then I'm gonna might not be able to copy this. So if I try to apply NVA inside of the environment, oh, wait a minute. That's not an environment, that's a scope.
Yeah. But you're still passing the scope though.
This is what I'm passing.
Yeah, you're passing the A and the scope. You're not passing the environment.
Well, that's not right.
Well, it is because you're sending it to car of ENV. In apply ENV, you're sending it to car. So which would be the scope. Once you call and apply ENV, you pass it the variable.
Oh no, ENV is right here. So, I mean, the problem is that I'm calling apply ENV on A, giving it this. This should really be apply scope. In order for this to work, that has to be apply scope. In order for apply ENV to work, this has to be the list containing that guy.
Oh, it's because you have an extra parenthesis in front of list.
I purposely did that. This should be, oh, this should be the list containing.
That's right, because that's the scope then for that.
This is a scope, so this guy should be in a list.
No, it's already in a list.
It needs to be another list. This is a scope.
Yeah.
An environment is a list of scopes.
Oh, I see what you're doing now.
That gives us the thing. So the question is why do we just have a scope instead of the environment? We're passing in right here. Where's the guy? So okay, here's the environment there. Here's our ExtendEnv for environment. And that guy gave us an environment, right? That's this guy right here. All right, so this guy gives us a list containing a list. Okay, so our ExtendEnv for lambda gives us the right value. Okay, that guy gives us the correct value. So when we call evalExpression listRef 1,2 on this new environment, we get the correct thing. So that gives us this evalExpression, this guy on oh, maybe I wrote this wrong.
George, right, perfect.
Because this is not what the environment is. evalExpression on appExpression var A var B, which is our 1,2, this guy up here. That's correct. So that's the 1,2. That's this part right here. So we're evaluating that expression in this environment, and that environment we just saw is this guy right here. We just resolved it. And that environment there is not equal to this. That environment there is equal to the list containing that.
Yes. So that's the scope.
Correct. So that means that evalExpression here if I try to evaluate this expression,
EXP again, not
if I try to evaluate that expression in this environment, okay. And right now, that's the answer I'm getting. I'm getting a false, correct? When I run this correctly, okay. All right, so now we can trace this. Let me copy this so I have the actual correct thing. Okay, so I think we are getting that part correct. Right? We are making this call, but this call should be applying our function to our 5, and it's not. So that's what's, and we're getting a false out of it. Okay, so let's trace that. So we're calling evalExpression.
Now you're getting a different error though. Once you push play again, you have to push play again. You'll get a different error.
Well, I'm not running the program. So let's trace this and make sure this does at least what we think it should be doing. All right, so evalExpression, this app expression, A to B, should give us this. Okay, so that means that takes us into the else. We're not looking at a lambda, so since we're not looking at a lambda, we're right here. So we should be looking at resolved variable, and the resolved variable should be giving us evalExpression on listref LCE1, which should be this guy. Here's 1. So I should be getting evalExpression on that guy, passing at the current environment. Eval exp on this guy, passing it the current environment, which is this guy. Which should give me a lambda. It does. All right, so that guy gives me what he's supposed to give me. Then, so that gives me resolved var. And actually, let's just prove that real quick. I'm going to cut that. Oh, I'm not going to cut that. I'm going to cut this. So now I'll go ahead and let it resolve that first part of the app expression, and I'm just going to spit out what it resolved. So it should spit out this. That it was able to resolve the first part of that guy to the lambda that we're going to be applying to something. That's what should happen. So let's do that. Okay, so far so good. Okay, we're getting to that part right there correctly. Make sense? Now, let's put this back. So now we're going to evaluate this guy. So this is the lambda we're going to be evaluating in the environment extended from listref resolved var1. That's this guy. With map of this guy I'm trying to extend this environment right here. Is this what's breaking? Let me do this. just show that extended environment. So now we should see the environment that has an X. That's the issue. Do we have the X equal to 5? I want to see that we have X equal to 5 in there. Let's run the program. So the hope is that this guy right here shows us a further extended environment. It should show us the original environment that has the A and the B in it with a more local scope that has the X equal to, in this case, a 5.
Why would the X be equal to 5?
Well, that's what it should be doing.
Why? Because you're passing both of those in, right?
Well, we should be extending the environment with this. These are the values we should be extending it with. So, yeah, this is the issue. X is being equal to false, when really it needs to be equal to the value associated with this, because we are trying to resolve resolved var we saw was that X. So we're extending that environment. We know we're in an app expression. We know the first element is the value that we're trying to, so that's our X. Let me go back here to this guy. Resolved var should look like this. Okay, so that gets us that part of it. But now we need to bind this guy to the values on the other part of our LCE. So list ref LCE2. So if I say list ref LCE2 right here, I should get the 5. Oh, no, it gives me the B, which is the 5.
That should be the A and the 5 should be the B, right?
So I need to call evalExpression on the B. So the B is the correct guy there. So I had to call evalExpression on that. Okay. I think we just about have it here. So extend this environment on, we're going to extend it with X, as well as map this guy across. This is the problem. It's not CDDR of resolved. It's It should be. So this is the A. Let me look at LCE here. So close I can taste it. All right, so this is what we're trying to do. This is the expression that we're trying to evaluate. So this is the guy I'm going to evaluate in this context. So that's LCE this time. So resolved var is going to be called on evalExpression this guy, which gives me my lambda. This guy is going to give me the, I guess it's the rest. So it needs to be a map. I think it's the wrong map we had. So I'm going to evaluate this lambda in the environment extended with this guy is the A, but it's actually not that. That's not what we want. We want the list ref, oh yeah, it's right, list ref resolved var 1, which is going to give us just this piece. I'm sorry, no, it's going to give us where's this guy? It should give us just this piece. So we have this is the lambda. Oh, no. This is going to boil down to our lambda, which is actually this, yeah, this guy. So it's going to look like this. We're going to go ahead and extend our environment with this x. And the value for that guy is actually going to be that. But we're not guaranteed that there's just one more thing. There could be many more things. So we want to actually map across the, so this is list ref 1, this is list ref 2. And then we want the cdr of that. The cdr of list ref. No, car of the cdr would give me the B. I want the cdr, which should give me the list of everything B and anything that might be beyond that, because I could have a C and D there. Right? C and D, if I had CD here, that would say that A is likely a lambda being applied to 3 parameters. All right, so to make this work for all of those, I would need to do, give me list ref of LCE 2. I need to give myself LCE again here. Okay, this is what we are evaluating. So it's our app expression A and B. So this is the expression we're currently evaluating right here. All right, so we know where our problem is right now. So our problem is right here, this final eval expression. So where we break right now, let me just make the note of it. We break at let's just say final eval exp. And the problem is that we're not passing in the appropriate second parameter for our ExtendEnv.